Let's go. Welcome back to the Inside Lines, where we talk about New Jersey politics and how it affects New Jerseyans. My name is George.
My name's Oscar.
And you know what? Today we are joined by a guest who's stepping into the arena to shake things up in Trenton. Chris Musto is a candidate running for the New Jersey General Assembly. And you know what? He's not afraid to speak plainly about the issues that matter. He's a retired executive from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, where he oversaw investigative operations throughout New Jersey. A longtime resident of the 36th Legislative District, Chris has been deeply involved in his community, serving as a coach for various sport teams, as well as a member and president of the Lyndhurst Board of Education. And now he's stepping into the political arena as a Republican candidate for the New Jersey Assembly, focusing on issues like public safety, ending sanctuary policies, and improving the business climate. He's running on a platform focused on public safety, affordability, parental rights, and even constitutional freedoms. Today, we just want to figure out who this guy is and why he's running and what he believes he can do to help make our state a better place. Chris, welcome to the show, my friend. It's great to have you on.
Thank you. That's one heck of an introduction. I really appreciate it.
I'm trying. You know, we're still early in our days of this podcast, but I'm having a lot of fun. Oscar, I think you're having a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely. And listen, let me tell you, George, and for the viewers at home, 36 is a must-win district. Listen, we got a strong candidate this time, strong running mate, and this is one that Republicans are looking to flip this year.
That's right. We're ready to go.
Ready to go. And look, that's why I wanted to invite him on. And you know what? He's our first candidate on the show. So
absolutely.
I mean, I hope this, knock on wood, I hope, this leads to bigger and better things for him and for our state and for the people who live here. So, you know what? We do things a little differently here. We're just going to go right into it. And I'm just going to start asking you questions because, you know what? I think a lot of people, they want to really know who Chris Musto is. They want to get a sense of who you are. It's easy to say, I was this or that. I lived here, this or that. You know, everyone says that. But we want to know where you stand on the issue. So let's start with something I think which may be easy for you because you've spent your career in law enforcement in Homeland Security. What's your take on the sanctuary status policies that are in our state?
Well, first, George, thank you very much, Oscar, as well. I really appreciate you guys inviting me to come do this. This is great. We definitely have to flip New Jersey's Legislative District 36. We have to. It's a must. And as far as sanctuary city policies, it's not just the cities. It's the entire state of New Jersey is a sanctuary for criminal aliens. Right now, the ICE officers that are working on the street trying to carry out President Trump's agenda are kind of stymied by the policies that are in place where they can't cooperate with the local police and state police can't cooperate with the ICE officials. Our jails cannot house ICE detainees, which on a separate note, they lose money. Each body or each bed that's set aside from the federal government, they pay between $150 and $200 a bed.
Wow.
So right now, that's not possible because of the sanctuary policies in the state. The other thing that's not possible is a sharing of information and intelligence. So if a community has an issue, and they have thefts or they have what's called the South American theft groups, right? that information of some of the people that are involved in some of those crimes can't get shared with the ICE officials. Now, they may not be able to charge them with criminal violations, but they can charge them with being here illegally and remove them from the country to remove that threat immediately without going forward to a full criminal conviction. The other thing that we couple that with is our recidivist offenders that continue to offend because of our failed bail reform policies in the state of New Jersey. That's another thing that I'd like to tackle once I am elected in the 36th district, along with Diane DiBiase, my running mate. We were both in lockstep. We want to end the failed bail reform. We want to end the cashless bail system. We need to keep people that commit heinous crimes and egregious crimes and recidivist offenders. We need to keep them incarcerated. But we also need to end, like I said, those sanctuary policies. They're damaging. They're detrimental to all of our communities around.
And Chris, listen, you have a long background in law enforcement, and I'd love if you could speak to kind of what the risk is to New Jerseyans, from a law and safety perspective.
On the sanctuary policies?
Yep.
So, as I was mentioning with the crimes that get committed and the intelligence that's not shared, on the streets when an ICE officer will look to go out and try to locate a criminal alien that's here without proper documentation or has committed past crimes and now they have to go find them. They have to go into businesses. They have to go into potentially schools. I know they're not trying to, but if that's where the person is and that's where they can find them, they want to get them and pick them up off the street in the most expeditious manner. Now, if there was cooperation between the jails or the police departments and the ICE officials, when that person would be arrested and get processed at the police station or the police headquarters or get transferred to a county jail, it would be a seamless transition. It would be safer for the criminal alien. It would be safer for law enforcement, and it would be safer for the community. Because right now, if they're found on the street, and they could get into car pursuits, motor vehicle pursuits, they could get into foot pursuits, and on occasion, you're taking somebody's liberty away. There are going to be issues. Maybe the subject will have a knife or a gun, and now it gets more dangerous in the street for these officers. And they don't have the backing or the support locally when they're going to make those arrests from the local police, county police, or state police, because they're not permitted to help or to assist those ICE officers.
Why are they not permitted to assist? Like, what
there
is
was an attorney general mandate or attorney general guidance or directive that said that they're not allowed to help in civil immigration matters. So the AG came out and ruled on that and told the departments that they're, and then doubled down again when President Trump won in November. When he was sworn in, I believe he put out another memo just reiterating the old memo that put all these things into account.
What do you say to the people who are against the ICE officials or like the law enforcement coming into businesses or knocking on doors at people's homes saying this is an invasion of my privacy or against my constitutional rights? What do you say in response to people who say that?
Well, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, if the cooperation existed between the state at the police departments or the headquarters or the jails, they probably wouldn't have to go into homes. And they probably wouldn't have to go into businesses, because if that person was previously arrested, there's a thing called a detainer, and it works on criminal cases and it also works on civil immigration cases. The immigration officials would put the detainer, it's an ICE detainer, onto the individual that's been arrested, which tells the local department or county or state agency or jail, you can't release this person for 48 hours. So if they get released on their bond or bail, you need to hold them up to 48 hours so an ICE official can come and remove that person from your custody.
And wouldn't it be great to have more people like him in the legislature who know what they're talking about, the issues on the ground?
Well, right off the bat, it's only been a couple minutes, and I feel like he knows so much more than any of these other candidates that come up and spew, but they say the same things over and over again, and it's just like, well, what do you mean? And I mean, I'm already impressed. It's been 2 minutes or something, and he obviously knows what he's talking about.
And I think the point is well taken. It's a safety issue, and a lot of the problems that people are complaining about today is vis-a-vis the businesses. You're talking about people worried about invasions of privacy. If the state were able to follow regular rules and procedures, this thing could be minimized.
Yeah.
They've created the problem, and they're campaigning on it.
Yeah, and they've created the problem exactly. They're campaigning on it, and they keep moving the goalposts with the rules and the regulations and their policies. And some of these aren't even law. It's just Attorney General's guidance or directives. But the police departments, all of the police departments within New Jersey, have to answer to the Attorney General.
So, what are, like, you've been on the street, right, in your professional life, but also right now that you're campaigning, what are the residents' take on what's going on with regards to sanctuary cities and even bail reform? Because that's a big problem, cashless bail in New Jersey. It's, I think, a tremendous problem. I see it all the time when, I'm from Paramus. We're the mall capital of the world. They're shoplifters that get caught, and then, an hour later they're released, and then they're doing the same thing over the next day or later that day. What's the residents' response?
So I think those two issues have been two issues that everybody can kind of rally around. Let me be clear. Like we're a country of immigrants, right? We're here. We're sitting at the table. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys that, right? And my family all originated, years ago from Italy. I don't think anybody is against people coming here for a better life, right? This is the United States. We have a lot more to offer than everywhere else. We have a lot more programs for people to be involved in. I mean, I think the point is we don't want criminal aliens. If you come here and you come here illegally, you have not followed the rules, you have not provided paperwork, we don't know who you are, and now you come here and you've committed crimes. I think everybody is together in they want that person to be removed. They don't want those criminals in their community. I think that's where the difference is, right? We're not talking about a wide swath of just generalized, illegal aliens. I think we're talking about criminal aliens. I think we talk about, people that came here and violate our laws. But like I said, everybody that I've talked to recently, we've all been affected by, stolen cars. We've all been affected by houses that are being burglarized to steal the keys, to steal all the cars that are inside. Just before I retired, and a funny story that relates to LD36, I was on my way to do a presentation at Montclair State University. I was in a suit, and I'm driving down Route 3, and I hear over the police radio that there's a car chase, and they just shut the car off on the top of the Route 3 bridge. It was a Cadillac, and I see the guy in the Cadillac jump out of the Cadillac, and I'm right behind him. So I drove, and I was in the shoulder. He's running down the shoulder. He runs down the median, and I was able to get him so that he actually fell in front of my truck. An East Rutherford cop comes over. The two of us were able to arrest him together. It happened to be Senator Paul Sarlo's wife's vehicle.
Oh, my gosh.
And, so I think every cop in the tri-state area probably came there that day. But, we were able to arrest him. And, again, we talk about recidivist offenders. It wasn't his first time stealing a car. And now he's there and he's arrested and he's probably let out. I didn't follow the case, but he was probably let out pretty soon after. We have, when I did oversee investigations in HSI in Newark, we would have some of our investigations on stolen vehicles, exports of stolen vehicles. The same crews, the same people would be involved, week after week. They'd be arrested, back out, to the point where the state legislature had to try to pass a law that said if you're arrested, I think, more than 3 times in a month, in 90 days, then you mandatory detention. Well, why are you out the first 2 times, right? Like, why does it take 3 times? So
it's a really good story. And it goes to show this is a problem for everybody.
Yeah.
There's nobody's
immune, right?
So when you get elected, what would be your first step to fix something that's not working with regards to this?
Well, I mean, honestly, I think it's going to be helpful if there's more Republicans elected, as well as a Republican governor.
For sure.
But I think if whatever I can do to push that forward, to change those laws and to eliminate that AG directive, whether it's eliminating that attorney general, I mean, that might be the start of it, and find an attorney general that can look at this problem in a different way.
And George, we've had this discussion before about the supermajority in the Assembly.
Yeah.
When we elect a Republican governor and when we break the supermajority in the Assembly, it allows us to move in a way that we couldn't if that was in place. Because what you'll have is the governor will veto something, or the governor will end a sanctuary state, and the Assembly will overrule him because they have a supermajority. So, candidates like Chris, candidates up and down the state who are looking to reclaim the Assembly, they are more important than ever in delivering a Republican agenda.
Yeah, we spoke on this last episode. I mean, the governor's race is important. Okay, yes, it's important. But I think what's really, really important, I mean, maybe above the governor's race are the Assembly races, because we need to break that supermajority in order to get things done, right? The governor, like I said before, can only veto so much, right? It goes back to the legislature and it gets voted on again. So we need great people like Chris here to step up. And we've talked about some law enforcement stuff. Let's stick to that and talk about the COLA.
Okay.
All right. COLA stands for Cost of Living Adjustments. What's your take on it?
We have to reinstitute the COLA. There's been some people that are out there, public service workers, first responders, some first responders who were injured or disabled from 9/11 or from shootings or from just general injuries on the job that have not gotten a COLA since June 2009, because it went into effect. The freeze went into effect June 2011, but you needed to wait 2 years before you would get a cost of living adjustment when you retired. So in June of 2009, you retire, you think you're going to get your cost of living in June 2011, and it doesn't happen. Now you haven't gotten it since 2009. I think there's over 300,000 public service workers that retired that have not gotten COLAs, and there's over 50,000 first responders that have not gotten the COLA. And I think the retirements of today and the salaries and the pensions that people are going out with are a hell of a lot different than they were 10, 12, 15 years ago. So I think what we really need to do is we need to bring some of those people up, the longest ones back, so going back to 10 years, and kind of try to bring them up, because they're some of their pensions are at like $30,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, and they're 70 years old, 75 years old, and they're got to take additional jobs on now to try to make ends meet. We have the highest property tax in this country. We have the highest income tax rates in the country. We have the highest business tax rates in the country, and we have the highest healthcare costs. All that together with your pension, and it hasn't been increased at all, that's a problem.
But how are we going to afford this?
Well, and we talked about this 2 episodes ago, George. The budget has increased from, $30 billion to $56 billion.
Yeah.
And none of that has gone to cost of living adjustments. Right. I don't think that the state has a money problem. I think the state has a spending problem. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. And, right now, I think we can take some of the money from various different areas. Well, we just talked about criminal aliens a little while ago, a couple minutes ago. $30-something million went to the Criminal Alien Defense Fund. I mean, there's $30 million right there. You can just take off and put right to the COLA, right? As we go forward, you just need to adjust, and we need to plan for it. If we want to do it, we can do it. We can find money in different areas. There's a lot of programs that are in the budget, and now Governor Murphy has proposed a fund tax on everybody, right? So we need to fight that too. But there's so many taxes and there's so many different income streams in the government. We can start to cut, but then we can take some of the money that we're cutting and put it and give it back to our public service workers and our first responders.
This is what I don't get when any candidate says they're for first responders or they're for law enforcement and they want to support Democrats. They've been in power in New Jersey for how many years? And yet we have this big, big problem with COLA.
Yeah.
And why aren't they solving that problem? This is like a clear, red flag. There's a problem here, and you guys care about all these people who've given up, risked their lives to help save our public, and yet you're not funding them, you're not helping them survive in this crazy world that we live in, where it costs, that bottle of water there, that used to be like 25 cents, it's not anymore. It's like $3, so it's like, what are we doing? What are we doing, Oscar?
Look, and you're talking about, in your case, assembly people that have been entrenched incumbents for so long and who run, I think, every time on how much they protect and support law enforcement, and who have not put any measures forth to solve this problem or really any of the other problems facing law enforcement.
Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. And I think, like, I'm sick and tired of it. Like, this is actually pissing me off a little bit just because of the fact that, look, you know, I haven't been in law enforcement for as long as Mr. Musto here, but, you know, I don't really get paid to actually serve my community. But when I see law enforcement, like, they put their lives on the line, whether it's police, whether it's firefighters that go 2-3 o'clock in the morning when a house is on fire, and they're volunteer, you know, or like they're risking their lives, and we're not taking care of these people. These are cherished people in our community. We're not taking care of them. That just makes me really
Absolutely. My father's in law enforcement. His father is in law enforcement. Frankly, I think they're still really gunning that I end up in law enforcement some way, somehow. And this is a big issue, right? Not only in New Jersey, but across the country. There are policies put in place that don't support our law enforcement, and then people run on supporting law enforcement anyway. Yeah. And so it's really good to have a candidate with law enforcement experience who knows what police officers, and not just police officers, all first responders need, and how to address it.
I agree. Totally agree. So we've talked about the law enforcement perspective. Let's go to something that's a little more closer to home with regards to the money in our pocket, right? Living in New Jersey, I don't know about you. I mean, you don't have a family yet. I have a little family. You have a bigger family. It's getting harder to live in New Jersey. Sure I mean, property taxes going up. Part of that is due to Board of Ed costs, budget going up. A lot of things are going up, and it's just not getting easier. You know, I went to Costco again. I love Costco. I'm trying to find those eggs, man, you know? But I go to the business Costco. You can buy eggs, but you got to buy 15 dozen boxes of eggs. You know, that's like over $100. Like, I don't know where to store that. I can't store that. And I go to the local one in Teterboro, and there's no eggs. There's no eggs there. Costco should have eggs. And I mean, some of the egg prices have gone down, but costs across the board, even cars now, because, you know, things are going up, like everything, maybe tariffs. I don't know. Maybe we could talk about that, but it's getting more expensive to live in New Jersey. How are we going to solve this?
So, again, as I mentioned, one of the last questions, everything's high, right? Property taxes are high. Property taxes keep increasing. Income tax rates are high. Business tax rates are high. Healthcare costs are high. I think we got to start with the property taxes, and we have to put a freeze in, and we have to make it easy for people to get reductions in their property tax. I don't believe in a system where you got to actually get a form, and then you got to fill out the form, and then send it in, and then hopefully people complete those forms or go online. Some people don't go online, right? So my relatives, my in-laws don't go online. They get the rebate form, and my wife usually has to fill it out for them, help them fill it out or whatever it is. And it's a shame. They should just be at a certain point, whether it's 70 years old or maybe, you know, we adjust that age or something. We stop, right? And they get frozen automatically. You're over a certain age, your taxes are frozen. They don't go up anymore. As far as our income tax rates, I think we got to reduce the income tax rates. We got to give some money back to the people. We got to put money back into our economy. Let them go and spend some of their hard-earned money. I would love to be in a place in a world where we didn't have property tax at all. I think some state like Mississippi is trying to do that now or something, and I don't think, and some other places have it. Florida has it, New Hampshire has it. I don't think we'll ever get there here, but we have to try to get to that point. Maybe sharing services was where we get there, right? And when I was on the Board of Education in Lyndhurst, we wanted to take care of our properties. We wanted to take care of lawns and maintenance. Well, the town had a DPW that did that, or Parks and Recreation Department. We would use both. And they come in and they take care of our property. Why would I have my own property management when the town's already doing it around town? So we'd bring them in and they'd do it. When we built some buildings in the town, we used shared service agreements with the town to help, defer those costs. We didn't have to bring in a private contractor. We would bring in the town workers. Now all we had to do was pay their overtime, which works out a lot better. The work and the equipment and the personnel already there. Maybe across the board we start looking at giving incentives to towns that change to sharing services. It doesn't just have to be Board of Ed and the town. It could be town across town. Like if my town has a piece of equipment and the next town needs that same piece of equipment, we come up with an agreement that they don't have to buy the same piece of equipment. As far as boards of ed are concerned, my town has probably 2,500 students. The next town, North Arlington, has the same. Rutherford has around the same. Well, maybe you don't need 3 different superintendents at $250,000 a year. Maybe you can combine them at some point. But these are all options that are on the table. I'm not saying that there's got to be a negotiation. We have to have some compromise. But those are a start to try to lower the taxes. As long as we are good stewards of that money and we take that money when you make those reductions and you don't spend it on something else that's wasteful. And I think that's where we need to cut and try to give those cuts and those savings back to the residents. And as far as business, we need to make New Jersey an area of the country where people and want to create a business. Right now, we're not that place. Right? People are we have an out-migration problem that's significant, and we need to tackle it. Business tax, the highest rate is 11.5%. That's way too high. Right, I think Pennsylvania is about their highest tax rate is like 4%, 5%. We need to come down, and we need to start out and give some incentives for people to come here. We have a lot of open space where we can have different in AI or some kind of warehousing for storage media. There's a lot of options that are out there. We need to try to advance some of those and push those forward and lure in business. So they want to come here. They want to make New Jersey their home. And then by that, we get the families to come back here as well. Because families are leaving now for states that are easier on their wallet, like Florida, Texas, and places like that.
Look, it sounds like the key word, Chris, is fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
I'm a councilman over in Richfield Park. It's not our money, and we need to stop spending it like it is. It's taxpayer money, and it's good to see someone who respects that. I think there's 2 ways to interpret that statement. There's people on the other side of the aisle who say, it's not our money, we can spend it how we want.
Yeah.
And there's people on our side of the aisle who say, it's not our money, we have to be careful how we spend it. I think that's the big dichotomy.
Yeah.
Well, as a commissioner, sorry,
right.
What waste have you seen? Have you seen waste in your town?
Look, absolutely, and I'm sure it's easy to spot in every facet of government, right? And I'm sure you've seen it. You have, for example, up until very recently, we did all of our recreation signups on paper. We only accepted cash. We were printing it. And can you believe we were using so much paper that paying an online subscription to process transaction digitally saved us money? We were spending so much on paper that it was a reduction in cost.
We were same thing, Board of Ed.
Yep.
You know how much we were spending? I think tens of thousands of dollars on colored printed materials. Like, this is what we've been doing. And look, I think when it comes down to not being my money, it's easy to spend, right? But when it's like my look, we have a really cheap setup here, right? It's not the top A first class setup, but it does the job, right? That's the point. It gets the message across, right? And I think we need smart people in government who have the experience of not just being a politician, but maybe a business owner, maybe someone who's worked in other facets of government, who have that experience that can bring it to the table and say, look, yeah, why are we spending $1 million here? Why are we spending $1 million there? This is unnecessary. And we need, I feel, in my opinion, we need courageous people who don't care about what anyone else says, who's not afraid of being shunned or, embarrassed on social media, whatever it may be, and just really brings it to the people and says, here, it's either this or this. And if we keep going down this line, we're going to have the same troubles. It's going to not get better. It's going to get worse. Right. We need to fix something here because, like you said, 54, 56, 58 billion dollar budget this year. I mean, how are we going to be able to support that as a state?
Now, we talked a lot about waste, and that brings us, I think, to one of our subjects. I'm going to ask for your thoughts on cutting wasteful spending. Some people call it NJ Doge. Some people think it'll be its own thing. What is your plan? How do you think we should go about cutting wasteful spending? And do you think it's possible in a state like New Jersey?
Yeah, why not? It's possible at the federal government, the federal level, and why wouldn't it be? So, listen, when I started at the Board of Education and, I got there, it took me a couple of years and I became the president. And I said, listen, when was the last time our budget was ever reviewed, like from the beginning, from line by line, what we need, what we don't need, and when I did that, I tell this story a lot, and my wife knows this story too, is I found the door. It was actually a line item for a door, and it was $895, and the same number had been in the same budget for like the last 6 or 7 years. Right. And I said, well, where's the door that this was? Well, where do we? Oh, we never fixed the door. I said, but you're spending $895 a year on this door. Where's the door? So look, I think as people go on and they get complacent and the budget gets, the people that are putting together the budget, and you have one party rule in this state and they've controlled it for so long, there could be 1,000 of those doors somewhere in our state budget. And we got to go in and find them. We got to go in and we got to pull it apart, pull out what's not necessary, see where the money's going, and pull that money out. And either we give it back to the residents, or we just cut the budget so that the taxes go down, right? And we could reinvest it into our public workers. We can reinvest it into the pension system, but we're going to remove it from the budget so it's not there year after year, and we don't need certain programs. We cut them.
That's a great answer.
Look, I'm doing that right now, and I probably need some pointers from you with regards to like what things you found, because the budget, which I requested, is like 140 pages long. So I'm going line by line item, and I'm not
all on paper.
It's all on paper. Yeah. Well, I printed double sides, so I saved some trees there. But it's amazing to just see what's in there. And like you said, if it's been going on every year, you go. I'm probably going to have to request the last 10 years just to see if the same charges have been going over and over again, because 895 times 10, that's $9,000 right there. That, like, where has it gone? Yeah. It has to have gone somewhere. Where does it go? So,
I like your efficiencies. Sorry. I like your efficiencies also with the paper. I mean, we were getting our board agendas when I was on the board, all paper. So you have, 9 of us board members, the secretary, the lawyer, everybody got this stack of paper every week like this. I said, can't you just email this to me? Give me a PDF and I'll just scroll through. And yeah, so I appreciate that.
It's funny, right? Because we give Chromebooks to every student.
Yeah.
But then we print out there's so much printing going on. It's unbelievable.
And look, you saved the trees, right?
Environmentalist Chris Musto. Let's talk about overdevelopment, because that's a big topic that's affecting a lot of us in Bergen County too, with regards to this overdevelopment of housing. I mean, are you experiencing that in Richfield Park? Because we definitely are in Paramus.
Look, and this is a great question that I want to ask you. We're throwing up sky rises in Richfield Park. We have no choice because of state mandates. We add 50 units. 5 of them will be for affordable housing. We don't get any closer to our goal. When you're elected, how do we tackle this? How do we fix the mandate? And small communities like mine, frankly, we're running out of room to build on.
Yeah, I think that's the answer right there. You're running out of physical room that you can build. Look, Mount Laurel Doctrine was, I think it was 1975, so it's roughly 50 years old. New Jersey was a much different place 50 years ago when this all came out, and they just kept moving it along. I think the population, we have maybe 1.5 million more people in New Jersey than we did in 1975. Bergen County has about 200,000 more people in it now than in 1975. Bergen County is the size, or is bigger population-wise than like 6 states. And in an area that's not quite as big as Wyoming, right? Or North Dakota, South Dakota. It's Bergen County, for God's sake. What I think is we need to argue, and we need to fight, and we need to pull information together. So in my town, Lyndhurst, Carlstadt, where Diane DiBiase is from, our towns have been told that they have to provide X amount. I think originally it was 366 in Lyndhurst, and it's come down a little bit. I forget exactly. I think they were over 200 as well in Carlstadt. North Arlington's over 200. Passaic was at like 3,000 units they needed to build within the next 10 years. But the information's faulty on what they used for buildable land. And I know it's that way in Lyndhurst, and I know it's that way in our Meadows towns, right? Where they've taken the meadows and said, yeah, you can build in all this. Some of it's swampland. Some of it's water. You can't build on water. You can't build over those areas. So I think you got to take that information, you got to go back and you got to fight, and you got to bring it to court. Some of the mayors have done that throughout New Jersey, and I think we have to change the criteria. Look, people need an affordable place to live. Veterans, seniors, disabled, special needs, they need a place to live, right? And they need an affordable place to live. But that doesn't mean that we need to just build, arbitrarily on a mandate that's not well thought out, and it gives no thought to infrastructure, right? So you build, in our Meadows area, you build another 600 units, but your infrastructure is not built for another 600 units. It wasn't built for the units that are down there now. The sewer pipes, the water pipes, the electricity, the police, the schools, the fire, none of that was ever built out for what's going down in our area. All across our area, that's North Arlington, Lyndhurst, Carlstadt, East Rutherford, all those areas that are the traditional Meadows areas, including here in Richfield and Edgewater, and all along these areas that are not, it's not buildable land. We need to push back, and we need to fight, and we need to battle. And I think a Republican governor, can change that, and they can change it pretty quickly with the help of a Republican legislature. We can change those criteria, we can change those rules and what it's based off of, so we can reduce that. And I'm not saying I'm against making things better and developing areas, because look, if you stay stagnant, that doesn't help anybody either. But if you build correctly and give some thought to the future and to the infrastructure, I think we'll do all right.
I heard this really clever axiom, and you got to think about it for a second when you hear it. It's instead of building affordable housing, we need to make housing affordable.
Yeah.
I think that the problem that you have is it's the policies in place right now that are making these houses, $600,000, $700,000 for a starter home. So then you have to build these apartment complexes to compete. If we just brought the price of the home down.
Yeah. And look, the builders are the ones that are fighting these laws the most.
Oh yeah.
The people that basically benefit from all the Mount Laurel doctrine, all these laws that based off of it, and the mandates is architects, builders, and lawyers. That's who makes all the money. And the people that need a house for affordable house, they still don't have the affordable house.
Absolutely. It's.
I think the thing you mentioned, which is really important to note, is what is the consequence of building these additional housing units, right? It's the infrastructure that cannot. We're experiencing that now. We will be soon in Paramus, where we have multiple things in the pipeline of housing going up. And where are the kids going to go to school? Because right now we're probably at 20 kids per class, let's say 21, 22. The state allowed is, I think, 27 or 28. But it's like, are we going to... The schools are going to get overcrowded. Are we going to have to build more buildings, get more buildings? What about, our town is a volunteer fire department. We have 4 companies in my company coverage area. We have 2 hospitals now. Yeah. We have, the old Bergen Pines, I forgot the new name. And then we have Valley Hospital that's there. We're covering those 2 hospitals. Are we going to go paid? That's going to be expensive as well, right? Because we have to hire career firefighters.
Pensions and healthcare.
It's just like an unending vicious, like you lit the flame, right? It's like the wildfire that just keeps on going and going. It doesn't stop. And there does not seem to be an answer to solving this problem other than raise your taxes or pay more money. And so we can have a budget of next year $100 billion.
And I really want to zero in on schools, because correct me if I'm wrong, you were a school board president?
Yes.
What are you seeing as a result of this kind of overcrowding, or what do you expect to see, and how is it going to affect schools if people keep building and, really units and communities that are out of room?
So our town went through that, right? So a few years back, it's a little bit more than a few now. Now I think we built it in, I want to say like 2017 or 18. We built a new middle school because we were running out of room.
Right.
That school is starting to be, filled at this point. We had built another smaller temporary school. We named it Memorial Campus. We took over a summer where we were going to have a huge second grade coming in, and over the summer put up these trailers that were all interconnected, put it on some space that the town had, and we outfitted it. It was great, right? It served its purpose, and then once that period of time where we had this influx of kids dropped, we were able to use that for other special types of students and events and programs in the school instead of just a second grade or third grade. But now most of those kids are moving into our middle school or just gone through, and now we're getting more kids into town from the apartments, from the buildings that are going up in our Meadowlands, some of the buildings that are going up within our town proper, and the middle school is getting filled up to capacity. And we're going to have to figure that out as we go forward. But what we did was we made a deal, shared services agreement with the town. The town purchased the note for the school. It was $56 million, and we built a middle school. It's 6th, 7th, and 8th right now. Some middle schools are different, but that's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Yeah, look, and this is a problem that it's not localized to your town. I mean, all over your district, your North Arlingtons, your Rutherfords, your East Rutherfords, this is either happening or going to happen soon.
So, hey, look, a shared services type of contract, if three towns that are near each other might need a new school or a new high school, instead of building three for 120 or 150 million each, maybe you build one. That's 150 million that can fit all those kids in it, right? So now you just saved almost $300 million. But those are options on the table that we can look at to try to reduce costs and save some tax money.
Absolutely, yeah.
Makes sense to me. Makes sense to me. We're talking about schools. Let's talk about sports in schools, because this is a big topic that's going on in social media with just being fair to women's sports. What's your take on biological males playing in women's sports?
They don't belong there.
Yeah.
And look, I've long been, before this was even an issue, in the last couple of years, when I was on the Board of Ed, there was a policy that came up for approval, and I tabled the policy. I said, we're not voting on that. I said, how do I protect the kids in the school? How do I protect all the kids in our school? Not just the feelings and the kid that's trans. I said, how do I protect the kid that's not? How do I protect the cheerleaders from the football team who decide today, we're all going to say that we identify as female today and go into the female locker room? Or how do I protect the males that are football players, baseball players getting changed, and the females go and say, well, I want to identify as a male today? Because there was no policy. There's no check and balance. All you had to do is say it, right? And you can go in. Now, as far as sports are concerned, this is not, that was then, that was when I was on the board, 16, 17. But now we have a problem where it's unsafe. It's dangerous for a male to be competing against a female. We've seen around the country how females have gotten hurt in playing in different sports against males. We see how, even a mediocre male athlete can beat a female athlete, and that female athlete's trained their whole life to do certain things and participate in certain sports. For this male athlete now to come in and be a few seconds faster, or bang a volleyball harder, or a pole vault, or whatever the sport might be, we see where the problems lie and how it affects the female sport. They were never made for that. My whole upbringing, I knew that female sports were for females, and they fought to get those sports. and they fought really hard to make sure that they competed and they worked out as hard as they possibly could to be the best in their sport. And now they're getting, overtaken by males coming in for no apparent reason, but because somebody in the Democratic Party wanted to allow that to happen. I think it's unsafe and it's unfair.
Hey, I mean, there's recently, I think there was one track, so someone running track or whatever, attacked while they're actually competing in the race. And there was another lady who was a fencer who I think this past weekend just said she wasn't going to compete. Took a knee because she's not going to go against a male. I mean, Oscar, you're a young guy. You're the youngest guy here at the table. You recently, you've been in high school, a couple years back. Did you experience any of this or see any of this in your school? Or
well, I think the important thing to note here is that these are 80-20 issues, right? I mean, this is a very common sense, regular thing. Look, and there's biological differences, and that's why we have different categories of sports. I think that it's okay to say, to be sensitive, to be respectful of the way people choose to live their life, but you can't go out and you have swimmers who switch teams and end up being first place swimmers. It's the Democrats, I think, on this issue specifically have drawn a line in the sand that I don't understand. Right. I don't think it makes a ton of sense, but it comes from the kind of polarizing that we have in society.
I don't think many of them. I don't think many of America, like you said, 80-20 issue. I think it might even be more than that. I think quite I've talked to Democrats who said that, that's something that they can't understand. No one can understand it. So,
you get to a point where you just have to be reasonable about certain things. And I don't have any experience that you guys do in the school board, but I can't imagine that this is really a contentious issue at the local level. It's these. It's these federal and state actors who maybe are considerably removed from their education. They're getting advanced in their years. They don't have any experience serving the local school boards, and they're sending legislation down to the rest of us.
We had a practice a couple of years ago. I was coaching my son's baseball team, and I've coached girls softball, I coached basketball, I coached baseball. The girls softball team in the baseball field is here. The softball field is here. They're right next to each other. So at the end, the 8th graders came together, the 8th grade girls, the 8th grade boys, and they wanted to have races around the bases. And for the most part, the guys are winning. A couple of girls are really, really fast, and they would win. But for the most part, the guys are winning. And they came around, and they hit. 2 were running with their head down. And they hit at second base because they weren't looking at each other. Now, what we had told them was I forget it, but the girls were on the inside, the boys were on the outside, whatever it was. Well, whatever it was, they came the second together. And the boy hit the girl, and the girl was laid out, and I thought she was dead for a couple of seconds. The boy got hurt, but he's standing up, and he's looking at her, trying to pick her up. I mean, we're built differently. We're just built differently. And biologically, the males are stronger. There's some exceptions, right? But for the most part, on average, they're built different, stronger, and I felt so bad for the girl. We went over, we grabbed her, we were trying to pick her up, make sure she was all right, but she got rocked. But coming head to head with the boy, or 8th graders, just having fun, messing around. Yeah,
it's tough. It's definitely a tough situation, but I think, like we've been saying, this issue is a regular common sense issue most people agree on. Yeah. And I think a lot of the discourse on this issue is it's limited to online spheres, is what I'll say. I think talking on the street, and I'm sure you've been on the street campaigning, I don't think that it's a controversial issue to say that, biological males belong in men's sports and biological females belong in women's sports.
I think the problem we have right now is they're doubling down on the other side. All these crazy ideas that the ideas that we would think a few years ago were crazy, they're doubling down to try to keep them in the forefront as their campaign issues on the left side. It's the wokeness in schools, the biological males playing with the females, sanctuaries for the state. They want to make more rules and give more money. I think we're just at a point right now where it's you're either for the United States or you're for a better New Jersey or for a better life for your future, or you're not. So,
talking about controversial issues, Second Amendment, gun rights. New Jersey has one of the strictest laws with regards to gun ownership. It's very difficult to own a gun, but also to do the concealed carry. You have to jump through a lot of hoops. I've been debating whether or not to do that myself. What's your take on that?
I'm a very common sense person when it comes to gun rights and 2A. I'm pro 2A. And I recently had this conversation. So post Bruin, the decision that allowed the concealed carry, I think we've had like 60,000 applications or 60,000 issuances of concealed carry in New Jersey, right? But when I talk about common sense, you get a firearms ID card. You have to go and you have to apply. You have to go through a background check. You have to submit your fingerprints, and you get a firearms ID card. Then you can go to the store and you can buy 10 rifles in one day if you want to, 10 shotguns. As long as they're rifles or shotguns, long arms, you can buy whatever you want. But in order to go buy a handgun, you got to get a new background check. You get a new permit. You got to wait 30 days. Maybe you'll get done in 30 days. Maybe it won't. And then you can only buy one in that 30 days, right? And then if you want another one, you got to go back and do the whole process all over again. Then we have some more things where I think we don't have common sense. If you have a pump shotgun, you can have as many rounds you want to put, as many slugs or buckshot, whatever you want, as many as you want in there. But if you have a semi-automatic shotgun, you can only have 6. But if you have a semi-automatic rifle, you can have 10. So tell me how that all works out and how that's common sense. I don't get that.
And one of the most interesting, and I always like to bring this up, I'm 20,
right,
and I can own a rifle. I cannot own a handgun, right? You want to talk about common sense,
right.
And I'm in school, but one of these days when I graduate and when I get my own place, I want to be irresponsible, like most gun owners are a gun owner. But I was just looking at the laws recently, and I said to myself, I thought I was reading it wrong. I can have an AR-15 today, but I can't have a handgun. I got to wait a year. I got to be 21 years old.
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
I don't get it. I don't understand some of these laws, how they work out. But look, I have no problem if you're a law-abiding citizen, you haven't been arrested for any crime, you haven't been convicted of any crimes, you can have a firearm. And another one is hollow point bullets. This is when I retired. One person gave me advice that I could carry my hollow points that I had previously. Another person said, no, you need to get these other type of rounds that are like hollow points, but they're not exactly the same. I mean, I had a lot of hollow point 9mm. I had tons of it over the years. So I went out and got the new stuff, and then they came out with a guidance from our Federal Law Enforcement Association that says, yeah, you can have the hollow points. So I'm good either way, right? But the purpose is you can have hollow points in New Jersey if you keep them in your house or you use them at the range. But in between, you can't have them in your gun. You can use them, but if you have these other things that have this wax filler or plastic filler, and they perform as good, if not better, than the hollow points, and they look exactly the same, except for the wax, they're legal. But the hollow points are not. 49 other states allow hollow points, including California. So, again, we come back to, common sense. That's where I think we all got to get on the same page. And I don't want to see laws passed for the sake of passing laws on guns, because some of them make no difference. One of the things that I did, we enforced laws on imports of these machine gun conversion devices, which were dangerous, extremely dangerous, right? Well, New Jersey just passed a law making it a third-degree offense. When it's a federal felony, New Jersey made a third-degree offense, and you won't get that much time in prison. They actually made it less damaging to go to court and have one. You get less time by having these. They were already illegal. Federally, if you have that device, you have a firearm. They declare that as a firearm if you have a machine gun conversion device. New Jersey just made it so that it's just an accessory, which, I don't understand. Why would you go backwards?
Yeah, and I think a lot of this speaks to the kind of people we elect to the legislature. You have to have someone in the legislature, in the assembly, who understands firearms, who understands the danger, but also the way to use them respectfully, and honestly just knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like the difference between these new special modified hollow point rounds and regular ones, which, from what I understand, are completely indistinguishable.
Yeah.
Are there any other common sense issues that we haven't discussed today that you like to talk about?
Well, voter ID.
Go for it. Voter ID. I have my 2 cents on it, but let's hear yours.
Well,
on the voter ID.
I mean, look, if you go into a store and you got to go get medicine, right, for your kid, your kid's sick, they're coughing, and you want to go get some Tylenol, codeine, or you're going to pick up Benadryl or something, you got to produce your license, right?
Sometimes. They only ask me for the date of birth.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you got to give your license for that.
Hey, drinking, right?
Drinking. You want to go into a bar, you got to go and get your license, right? So there's so many different other opportunities that are out there for you to go and do things, and they require you to have your ID. I mean, why wouldn't we go in and do that for voting? It's a very important thing that we're doing. It's probably one of the most important things you're going to do, once a year or maybe twice if you live in a town like Ridgefield Park or Lyndhurst. But they're important things that you're going to do. We want to make sure we get it right. We've gotten it wrong sometimes in the past, or at least it appeared that way. We were perceived things that were improper. Well, cut that perception out, right? Why have it be perceived as some kind of improper behavior or inappropriate? Just provide your license. It'd take 2 seconds.
But it's hard for some people to get licenses, Oscar.
And,
I mean, that's the whole Democrat.
Wait. Do you mean like the people that are getting their licenses at the DMV that don't have to produce any documentation? And then there's a button there that says for the DMV officer to click that says send voter registration form? Because we've heard that happening. I had a person talk to me recently and gave me a whole documentation. They memorialized multiple events of these things happening. So these illegal aliens are coming up from the border. They're getting asylum. They're coming up to New Jersey, and then they're handing in this document. No real information. It's just their charging document from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and then they click a button, and then they're getting
This is in fact true. I have a friend who may work at DMV or may not, but he has told me that it is quite happening frequently that undocumented aliens are getting driver's licenses in New Jersey.
Look, I think the point that we really want to stick on is it's not that hard to get an ID. When I was, I think, 15, I got my non-driver ID. I got my license. I have a passport. Heck, I have a college ID, from Rutgers. It's not that difficult. If you... There are people who will argue that the sticking point is the fee. What do we charge for a license? It's like $45 to get your license printed, passaging fee. But I guarantee you say, all right, we'll waive the fee. Well, it's not about the ID. It's another one of these common sense issues that's become so partisan just because we're the ones supporting it. So they have to be against it. Yeah. That's what it is. It's a common sense reform. You need your ID for pretty much anything these days, to drive a car, to get to the voting station. There's, and like you were saying before, it's you get frustrated because these are issues that are so easily solvable.
Yeah.
It's just common sense. Look, I think today we've talked about a lot of issues, a lot of very important issues for the residents of New Jersey and District 36. I just want to give you the floor for the closing. Make your pitch to the residents of 36, why they should choose you over anyone else with regards to being in the assembly.
Well, first, let me just say thank you very much to both of you guys for doing this. It's been great. I really appreciate the offer to come up here to speak. Again, my name is Chris Musto. I'm running with Diane DiBiase. She's a current councilwoman in Carlstadt, New Jersey. And the two of us believe very much that we want to change the state. We are tired of living in a state that's the highest tax state in the country. We're tired of a place where there's sanctuary policies, where our police can't work together. And we're tired of being worried in our own homes from recidivist offenders. And we want to make sure that we're taking care of our future, our kids, our grandkids, so that we're not overdeveloping our areas. And we want to make sure that we have the best New Jersey, the most affordable New Jersey for everyone. And we will work hard to do that. We want to have an open door policy. So you want to come in, you want to ask us questions, we're here to answer those questions. Whatever we can do to flip these seats in the legislative district number 36, we're going to do. And we're going to help to flip the rest of the state of New Jersey red this November.
Chris,
thank you.
We thank you. We appreciate you for joining us here today. We know you're busy, but I have enjoyed listening to his vision and how he feels on a lot of the issues that are affecting us. I'm sure you have too.
Look, I feel excited. I feel excited for the future of our state. I think I'm ready to say that.
Look, to our listeners, if today's conversation got you thinking, you have a responsibility. You have to do a little more digging. You have to learn about who's running in your district. You know who's running in 36, one of the candidates here. Hey, he's a great candidate. We wish him the best and we want him to win. But you can't sit on your couches and expect something to change. You can't sit this election out. These local races, they matter more than you realize. And we hope that today's episode showed you a little piece of that. Look, we want you to subscribe. We want you to share our podcast to the masses in New Jersey, even people out of the state. We want them to know the crazy stuff that's going on in New Jersey. So if you've enjoyed this episode, like, comment, subscribe to us, share us to everyone that you know, and stay engaged. Comment. We've got some really interesting comments in our videos, and we always respond, whether we like it or not. We respond to you guys. So stay informed, stay engaged, and as always, keep looking beneath the surface. This is the Inside Lines.